You ever notice how the smarter you are, the lonelier you feel? Like, you can't find people who think the way you do. You can't have the conversations you actually want to have. You can't turn off the part of your brain that sees patterns, asks questions, and overthinks everything. I'm not arrogant. I'm just tired of dumbing myself down. Stay with me, because what you're feeling has a reason most people never talk about. And once you see why this happens, a lot of your loneliness will finally make sense. I watched a friend struggle with this for years. Brilliant mind. Could solve complex problems most people couldn't even understand, but couldn't find anyone who wanted to talk about the things that actually mattered to her. Not because she was condescending, but because her brain operated at a frequency most people didn't tune into, and small talk felt like suffocating. A lot of smart people describe the same thing. You're not lonely for people, you're lonely for depth. If this already sounds uncomfortably familiar, you are definitely not alone. Not everyone with high intelligence feels this way, but if you've ever felt like you're speaking a different language than everyone around you, like your thoughts are too complex to share, like you're perpetually waiting for someone to match your wavelength, a lot of this will feel familiar. People might think you're aloof, arrogant, overthinking everything. They see someone who doesn't fit in, someone who seems bored by normal conversation, someone who's hard to connect with. But inside your mind, something very different is going on. You're not cold. You're just operating in a mode most social environments aren't designed for. And there's actual psychology behind why high intelligence creates loneliness, why you can't just enjoy surface-level connection, why you need depth to feel seen, why your brain won't let you settle for conversations that don't challenge or engage you. If you've ever felt intellectually starved, like you're the only person in the room thinking certain thoughts, like you have to hide how much you actually know just to fit in, this is for you. Understanding why changes everything. So let's talk about what really happens when your intelligence creates a gap between you and most of the people around you. Here's the thing most people don't get. You're not trying to be deep. Your mind just goes there automatically. You notice connections others miss. You see systems, patterns, underlying structures. You can't help but analyze, synthesize, extrapolate. Your mind doesn't just process information. It builds frameworks, tests, hypotheses, searches for deeper meaning. And most social settings, they're not designed for that. They reward clarity and comfort over complexity. So, when you're in a conversation and someone makes a statement, your brain is already 3 layers deep, considering implications, questioning assumptions, connecting it to other concepts. Meanwhile, the conversation has moved on to something else entirely. Here's what that means in real life. Most conversations are designed for linear, concrete exchange, clear statements, simple responses, shared understanding without ambiguity. And when you try to share what you're actually thinking, when you express the full depth of what's happening in your mind, you watch people's eyes glaze over. You see them disengage. You learn very quickly. Keep it simple or lose them. This is why you feel lonely even in groups. Why you edit yourself constantly. Why you've learned to give the normal person answer instead of what you're actually thinking. You're not being fake. You're just exhausting yourself by constantly compressing your internal complexity into something digestible for environments that prioritize simplicity. Research shows that people with high fluid intelligence often feel out of sync with their peers from a young age, not because something's wrong with them, but because their thinking operates at a different level than most social environments accommodate. Sound familiar? Before we go deeper, hit like. If small talk makes you feel like you're slowly dying inside, here's the part that makes it worse. Small talk doesn't just bore you, it drains you. Like you're stuck eating plain crackers when you're starving for a real meal. For most people, small talk serves a function. It's social lubrication. a way to establish rapport without risk, a comfortable script that keeps things light and safe. But for you, small talk is torture, because your mind craves novelty, complexity, meaning. It wants to explore ideas, challenge assumptions, go somewhere interesting, and small talk offers none of that. Here's the part nobody tells you. You're not being judgmental when you struggle with small talk. You're experiencing genuine cognitive discomfort. Your brain seeks intellectual stimulation as a primary need. And when you're stuck in scripted, predictable conversation, it's not just boring, it's painful. Hot take: small talk isn't connection. It's emotional noise designed to avoid thinking. That doesn't make it useless. It just means it doesn't feed everyone. This is why you avoid social gatherings, why networking events feel like punishment, why you'd rather be alone than surrounded by people having conversations that feel empty to you. You're not antisocial, you're just intellectually lonely in spaces that don't offer the stimulation you need to feel engaged. And that's not snobbery. That's a mismatch between what your brain needs and what most social environments provide. Let's be honest, most conversations feel like you're waiting for people to catch up. Someone starts explaining something and you've already figured out where they're going, what the implications are, what the counter-arguments would be. You're running the full simulation in your head while they're still on the introduction. And you can't say that. You can't interrupt and say, "I already know where this is going." You can't speed them up, you just have to wait. And listen. And pretend you're still discovering what you figured out 30 seconds ago. Here's why it feels so isolating. You connect dots faster in certain domains. Not as a conscious choice, but as a baseline function. You make connections quickly. You see outcomes before others do. You're already thinking about the next question while people are still answering the first one, and that creates distance. Because you're always ahead, always waiting, always holding yourself back so you don't make others uncomfortable. This is why conversations feel exhausting, why you struggle to stay present, why you find yourself mentally checking out even when you're trying to engage. You're not arrogant for being ahead, you're just tired from constantly slowing yourself down. This next one is going to hit home. Here's something people don't realize about high intelligence. You don't bond through shared activities or casual interaction. You feel close through real conversations. Most people connect through proximity, shared experiences, emotional resonance. They become friends because they see each other regularly, do things together, laugh at the same jokes. But for you, that's not enough. You need intellectual intimacy. You need someone who challenges your thinking, someone who can engage with topics that matter, someone who doesn't just accept simple explanations but asks the next question. And those people are rare. Here's the part nobody tells you. You form emotional closeness through intellectual exchange rather than shared emotion or activity. You don't feel close to someone just because you spend time with them. You feel close when they understand how you think. But most people don't operate that way. They're looking for emotional validation, shared interests, comfortable companionship. And those things feel hollow to you if there's no intellectual substance underneath. This is why you struggle to maintain friendships. Why relationships feel superficial even when people genuinely care about you. Why you can be surrounded by people who like you and still feel completely alone. Because liking isn't the same as understanding, and you need to be understood at the level of how you think, not just how you feel. And that kind of connection is incredibly hard to find. Here's the real question nobody stops to ask. How much of yourself have you learned to hide just to fit in? You've probably learned not to correct people even when they're wrong, not to share what you actually know, not to ask the questions you're really thinking, not to show the full extent of what's happening in your mind. Because you've learned what happens when you do. People feel intimidated, insecure, threatened. They call you a know-it-all. They say you're showing off. They pull away. So you learn to play smaller, to pretend you don't see what you see. To play dumb so others feel comfortable. And every time you do that, you feel a little more alone. Here's the part people don't want to hear. Most people don't reject intelligent people because they're arrogant. They reject them because intelligence exposes insecurity. And here's the cruel irony. You hide your intelligence to connect with people, but hiding yourself is the very thing that prevents real connection. This is why you feel like you're performing in every social situation. Why you can't just be yourself. Why you're exhausted after being around people even when nothing particularly draining happened. Because you spent the whole time managing how much of yourself you were allowed to show. Intelligent people tend to have less friends. The smarter you are, the more selective you become. Nikola Tesla. But here's the truth. You're not broken for being selective. You're just wired to need something most environments don't offer. Here's what you need to hear. Your loneliness isn't a character flaw, and your intelligence isn't something you need to apologize for. You were shaped by a mind that sees more, connects more, questions more. That needs complexity to feel engaged. That can't settle for scripted interaction because it feels like starvation. And that's hard, because most social environments aren't built for people who think the way you do. But you don't have to keep dimming yourself just to make others comfortable. You don't have to keep pretending you're less intelligent than you are. You don't have to keep accepting shallow connection just because deep connection is rare. You can find your people, the ones who match your wavelength, the ones who don't need you to translate or slow down, the ones who challenge you instead of feeling threatened by you. They're out there. They're just as rare as you are. And they're probably just as lonely, searching for someone who thinks the way they do. Not all at once, not by lowering your standards or settling for less, but gradually, one real connection at a time. You get to be yourself, fully, unapologetically, without dimming. You get to prioritize depth over quantity. You get to need what you need, without feeling like you're asking too much. And the people who are right for you, they won't be intimidated by your intelligence. They'll be relieved to finally meet someone who thinks. Some people will hear this and say, you're just being arrogant. That reaction tells you more about them than it does about you. Because you were never too much. You were just in the wrong rooms. And now you get to find the rooms where your mind fits. Your brain isn't broken. It's operating in a mode most social settings weren't designed to accommodate. And that creates distance. But distance doesn't mean you're meant to be alone forever. So here's what psychology reveals. If you feel lonely despite being intelligent, capable, and accomplished, it's not because something is wrong with you. It's because high intelligence creates a cognitive gap between how you process the world and how most social environments function. And that's not arrogance. That's what happens when your mind prioritizes complexity in a world that rewards simplicity. But you don't have to keep settling. You don't have to keep hiding. You don't have to keep pretending you're less than you are. You get to find the people who meet you where you are. You get to prioritize quality over quantity. You get to be selective without feeling guilty. And maybe the real question isn't why you're lonely. It's whether you're finally ready to stop dimming yourself and start seeking the depth you've been missing. Drop a brain emoji if you've ever felt too intelligent for the room and too lonely to say it out loud. And comment this: do you think intelligent people are lonely because of how they think, or because society doesn't reward depth?